actually wonder whether it's going to take something like a sovereign default or some sort of collapse scenario to create a window of opportunity for something like this. And I don't want to. What's the old guy's name who was the cartel head in Colombia, and he was
Es-
able to give a lot to the local. Sorry, Escobar. Yes,
Escobar.
Escobar, Pablo Escobar. He became beloved, at least in Medellin, for the way he treated people in his community and so on. And of course, there was all the mafia antics that surrounded the drug trade, killing people and offing them. And in many ways, there are parallels to the way the state behaves and the way he behaves. He was free with his largesse in helping people, and so he was able to curry their favor. But he was also punishing people who went against his regime, which is what governments do. And governments are everywhere, and they're really hard to get rid of. They're kind of like mafias. So they're formalized or legitimated mafias. But I think something like the decline of a great power like the United States, while it is unfortunate and will very well be painful, represents a window of liminality. So I don't want to hasten the decline of my own country, but I do think that it is a distinct possibility that we see this window when state capacity has been significantly weakened by the debt and default, or a debt jubilee of some sort. Who knows what it's going to look like, or just profound money printing where we become sort of like this Argentine malaise, sort of like we saw before Javier
Uh,
Milei took power.
yeah, I like
But
the wordplay. The Malays before Malay.
it was a total accident. I realized it when I said it, and I thought, man, I'm going to keep that. But Milei is actually wonderful, but his implementations are quite top down. He's going through the political means, and it strikes me that there may have to be some of that for move towards something like our ideal. Let me switch gears though, because I think first we have to unpack the dynamics of the decline of civilizations. We saw the decline of the British Empire, the decline of Rome, Greece, Persia, you name it. There are these, and certainly there are wars involved in some of these situations. But ultimately, maintaining the cost of maintaining empire at its periphery and at its center, when you have this sort of bloated, non-productive class that sits atop everything and sponges, they're both parasites and predators at once. I'm seeing this happening in the United States to a very great degree, and I can only hope that there's an opportunity in front of it. But I wonder, as a historian or someone who's interested in both philosophy and the patterns of history, if you are interested in those patterns, and do you think there are, or let me say it this way: do you think there are patterns of decline that we can take from one circumstance to the next and observe, sort of like the old British military governor Glubb? He saw these patterns, or even the more quantitative approaches, such as those given in Cleodynamics by Peter Turchin. Do you think all this stuff is horseshit, or do you think there's something to it?
Well, we have to distinguish three things we can learn from history. There are repetitions,
Hmm.
are precedents, and there are analogies. It's three different things. And it's quite tricky to know which is which, because most of the use of history for political purposes is indeed, as you said, it's rhetorical, and it's basically using a very limited set of examples to support pre-existing positions. There is what I call the reduction to Adolf. Everybody is, oh, it's another Hitler. Hitler was really exceptional. There are a lot of bad people in the world, a lot of bad people in history. Hitler is quite, take the same compromise in international relations. You like it, you call it, it's Nixon to China. You don't like it, you say it's Chamberlain in Munich. And these are rhetorical flourishes, doesn't mean it. What we want to look at is, because history does not repeat itself ever. And the reason for that is that it is complex. But what you have is elements within history that repeat themselves or that serve precedents, that is, they influence how we do things today. The same way that a legal precedent influences what a judge decides today. And then the looser relevant historical examples are analogies. It's similar in a certain respect, but it's not the same. Now, if you look at what you call the declines of empires and so on, of course, there's a lot of good work about it. The question is whether it's applicable. Because you can always explain things backward. That's very easy. But predicting them forward is a different matter. Sure, you can try to explain the decline of the Roman Empire. Also, let's not forget, it took them 500 years. It was a very solid regime. Basically, the issue was, if you want to look at analogies, this is analogy, not a repetition, their issue was immigration. The main challenge to the empire were the Germans. All these, they were coming across the border, these blonde barbarians and ruining stuff. They were given to criminality. They didn't respect the old Roman order. What do you do with them? Indeed, in the end, the Visigoths got, but 300-400 years they managed it. They settled them and they gave them citizenship. That's how it worked. First, they were given citizenship on a selective basis. You play by our rules, you become a good Roman, you become a Roman citizen, then you're just like us. And then there was just universal, just everybody got the citizenship. And they were settling them, and then they were becoming soldiers. I mean, all the Roman legionaries in the late Roman Empire, they were German immigrants. They were just accepted the order and got a job. So there's a lot to learn there. Why do we see this decline today? I think there are two things. One is universal, and that's any monopoly will decline because they can't satisfy increasing demand. What is all this complaint that immigrants are coming and they overwhelm the welfare system, the education system? Do you see a private company saying, hey, we got 1 million new customers. Oh, what shall we do? We have to get rid of our 1 million new customers. I thought that's a monopoly thinking because a monopoly cannot, they are challenged. Then the quality of already very inefficient, low quality services goes down even further. So any monopoly will end up like this. And the solution is a panarchic solution. There has to be competition. You have to give the states the opportunity to expand, to franchise, and make money from taxpayers. That's our business. We want, if I am run a state, what I want is customers who work so they can pay me, who are healthy so I don't have to worry about their health insurance, and I want them to be law-abiding so I don't have to waste time on putting them in prison. These are the people I want. These are the people that we are kicking out. That's just the absurdity of anyone. Then there's the absurdity of populism. Because populism of the left on the right, what makes it populistic is the belief that you can vote on the law of economics, that you can vote on the laws of nature. Maybe I don't like gravity, so let's have a majority and we will all fly, and that will solve a lot of problems. The belief that you can have the cake, eat it, and lose weight at the same time. It's irrationality based on projecting desires, passions on reality. And you see that very much in certain departments in universities where the criteria for truth is authenticity. That it's really what I really feel very strongly about must be true. No, what you feel strong about is probably false because your passions are warping your concept of reality. There has to be evidence, there has to be influence from evidence. That's why all populist regime eventually is self-destructive. Whether it is on the left in places like Greece, whether it is on the so-called right in Argentina, they're self-destructive. So they're going to destroy them. There's no question about that. And here the question is, and that's what we can learn from the collapse of communism. The question was always, was there somebody ready to take over? Was there, whether people who were qualified, able, and willing to pick up the pieces once the system collapses? When you had such people like Václav Havel, then there was a smooth transition, no violence, and Czechoslovakia fell apart, but nobody died, nobody lost property, nobody. There was one state, then it became two states. That's it. Because there were people who were ready to deal with that. Okay, Slovakia especially didn't have they had cycles of populist governments and reasonable center-right government, and they've had now 3 cycles already. But at least in terms of there was no violence, no crime. When you don't have such elites ready, then the danger is that you have decline into civil war, decline into barbarism.
Right.
That's what happened, unfortunately, when the Western Roman Empire collapsed. Then there was this 500 years of barbarism. That's when you have state failures because there's nobody ready to take over. Nobody's organized and ready. So the lesson, if you want, for us is we have to be organized, we have to be ready. We don't know when it's going to happen. We know that the decline of a monopoly is going to be prolonged, and they will not go quietly. But what you want is to have somebody ready to take over. And what is important for me, I mean, I'm not going to be a prime minister. I'm a philosopher. I'm a political thinker. What is important for me is to just say clearly, this is what I think is the solution.